Notion as a productivity app. How many apps did Notion replace in my digital work suite? Did it replace things? Let's find out. Hey everybody, this is Mica Gonzalez, that's M-I-C-A Gonzalez with a Z, and yeah, okay, here's another Notion video. After I published my Notion tour, I realized there was still so much I wanted to say about this awesome productivity app, so I decided to follow it up with this video about which apps Notion replaced in my work suite. So before I jump right into that, here is your reminder to give this video a thumbs up and to subscribe to my channel for more videos just like this. It will also be very helpful in letting me know that I should do more Notion related or productivity app related videos in the future. So again, give this a like, a subscribe, and maybe leave a comment, especially if you're feeling a little bit generous. So I'm excited to dive right in. Let's go ahead and take a look at which tools Notion has successfully replaced in my own work suite. First up, let's take a look at Notion as a project management app. And here's the verdict. Yes, it was a total, as in complete, replacement. Notion has several different views for managing projects at a glance, from Kanban, timeline, and even list views and table views, but I find that those latter two are better for a different function that we will get into in just a bit. Now, before Notion, I was a user of Trello, a bit of Asana, and I was on Monday for a while, but Notion was just the easiest to set up for my projects in the exact way that I envisioned my workflow. If you watched my Notion tour, you'll see that I prefer keeping all my tasks and content associated with a project all in a master calendar, as you could call it. So I just wanted everything in one place, and Notion made it so easy to do that. And as far as my workflow went, I wanted to be able to toggle my views or easily look into specific tasks, and finally just be able to navigate from places without getting lost in my own app, which I admit has happened to me with some project management apps that I have used in the past. Now, I can't really say this about Asana since I haven't looked too deep into it, but I know with Trello and Monday, there are ways to kind of get this consolidated view. On Monday, I remember it was with this dashboard thing, and Trello, I believe, had different power-ups or tools that let you achieve this. But the biggest reason I moved to Notion for my project management needs was because I didn't need to spend a ton of time and, yes, frankly, even money creating the best project workflow for me and my content, and especially my business. Now let's take a look at Notion as a to-do list app. Here's the verdict: an absolute yes. I mentioned the list views and table views on Notion, and that's just one of my favorite ways to look at a to-do list. I'm sure that I've tried a ton of to-do lists in the past, things from like Todoist, To Do, and even sticking to the iOS reminders, or even, old school pen and paper, but I was craving a more databasey feel that I could get on places like Airtable, Google Sheets, Excel, and yes, definitely Notion. And yes, Notion does have a built-in to-do block, but I just prefer keeping my tasks as separate cards or items, and then using the to-do block within each one, maybe for my content or whatever. It just works best with my workflow, where I'm able to add notes, plan out subtasks, make to-dos fit my planning and work style. And if I'm being honest, I always did want my to-do list and my project management tools to work seamlessly together. And Notion's features already were so great for the former that I decided that it made sense to use Notion as a replacement to-do list app for the things I wanted to do in the future. So let's move on to Notion as a note-taking app. Here's my verdict. Also a resounding yes. I already mentioned that my work style involves a ton of note-taking, brain dumping, and jotting things down, so this probably doesn't come as a surprise. My note-taking app of choice used to always just be the default notes app on my phone or computer, and okay, I have previously dug into other apps at times, maybe the Sticky Notes or an app called Side Notes, which was just this slide-over note-taking app, which I did have a brief working relationship, but one that I quickly fell out of love with. And besides, many of the notes I had to take were related to my projects, from content to business stuff, so it just made sense to dump ideas and things into one space instead of keeping it across 5 different apps and things. And okay, when it comes to random surges of inspiration, when I'm out and about, or just when it isn't convenient to reach for Notion, I tend to jot things down really quickly on my notes app, especially on my phone or even random pieces of paper I might have on me. But I realized it was just better to transfer those into their own home on Notion eventually, instead of keeping them on a separate notes and then having to refer to a different project management app in the future. Now we take a look at Notion as a writing app. The verdict: yes, but with some reservations. I'm a seasoned user of a lot of writing tools. I have used and fallen in love with Ulysses, Scrivener, and yes, I'm an absolute Google Docs champion. So it's admittedly a little hard to completely give up these tools that I just really love. I am a writer by trade. My whole career as a creator began as a writer, so you'll forgive me for saying that Notion just isn't 100% my writing app just yet. And it's not necessarily because Notion lacks anything in terms of competing with my apps of choice. It's just a personal preference. I will, however, proudly admit that I was very impressed by Notion's block elements. If I didn't prefer simpler writing tools or the tools that I use, then I would go ham on creating full, completely shareable, beautiful blogs straight from Notion, then hitting publish to the web. Yes, kind of like it was WordPress or Medium, but as it stands, I enjoy writing on Notion very much. It's just not my favorite writing app yet. But it might be, maybe with a little more time and maybe with some adjustment. Okay, Notion as a calendar app. The verdict? No, but hopeful for its future. I use Google Calendar a lot. Notion has a Google Calendar view-only embed feature, and while that's better than nothing, I'm still looking forward to a deeper integration in the future. Notion themselves have even confirmed this on their to-do list since it's a popular request, and I could be mistaken, but I believe that a Notion API that's dropping early next year is supposed to be the answer to this integration. But again, I'm not sure. I'm not the most techie person in the room, but I have seen deep integrations like this being done from Google Calendar and other apps, so I assume that this is very much possible with Notion. Also, just to clarify, I'm not necessarily looking to completely replace Google Calendar. Honestly, I'm not really sure if that's even possible if I think about it, but I would love to see this deeper integration regardless. Imagine being able to see new events, invites, coaching calls, discovery calls in my business as they come all in one app. And I don't have to check my Google Calendar as they come up. It's all just in Notion. Sure, it is still all happening on Google Calendar, but how cool would it be if you could see it all on Notion anyway without having to check Google Calendar separately? Now let's move on to Notion as a database management app. My verdict? Yes, with a tiny reservation. So before Notion, I managed my client database on Airtable, and for the most part, Notion has been able to make it very easy to view everything at a glance, link clients to projects and tasks, especially with the relational properties and features. But I did mention I had a tiny reservation, and it's that Notion doesn't really have an easy way to view answers from forms or surveys, especially if those forms and surveys are meant to be linked to a database for clients. Here's what I mean. In my business, I work with clients, and to manage leads and leads who eventually turn into clients, I have a couple of surveys that I want them to answer. What would be awesome is if I could do the same thing I can do on Airtable or yes, even Google Forms, which is create a form whose results are immediately put into a database very easily. Notion, as it stands right now, as I record this, lets you embed a type form or something, sure, but you'd still need to check the type form itself on the app. You'd need to log in before you can view all those responses. The alternative is to export your results from a survey or form into a CSV, then importing it into Notion, but that's a little too much clicking for my preference, so I've mostly just stuck with using Google Forms and occasionally Airtable if I'm feeling like it. Still, from what I've been seeing, sniffing around the internet and looking at people's requests, having a form linked to a database feature seems to be a very well-requested one from other Notion nerds, and I can only hope that the upcoming Notion API that'll be out soon means that this feature is so close we can almost feel it, almost enjoy it. Finally, let's see if Notion was able to hold a candle to my current spreadsheet app. The verdict? No. But that wasn't really Notion's goal anyway. In a tweet from a long time ago that I found, Notion themselves has said that they didn't want to replace Excel or Sheets, which the latter is what I use for everything formulable and calculating, and they do mention it. They do mention that this is a much better app for calculating things, and I'm not gonna disagree. And okay, if I may just mention, Airtable, which is the app that I compare Notion to the most, already does this way better than Notion, and they have so many similar features as is. Part of me does wonder why this wasn't a core strength of Notion from the get-go, but it's not a deal breaker, not by a long shot. So let's just leave it at Notion didn't want to be a spreadsheet kind of app anyway, and there is a simple Google Sheet embed block that kind of makes this process easy. At least everything's still in one space on Notion, and kudos to Notion for knowing what they did want to replace and being really cool about the stuff that they're already good at. And that's everything I had for you. I had a great time doing deep dives on specific apps and tools that I use, so be sure to let me know if you want to see more videos just like this one, more Notion videos. And as always, thank you for liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, all that good stuff. I appreciate you very much, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!